removal of a historic number of violent criminal aliens, gang members, and child sex offenders. Those are overwhelming better records than at least two of your past predecessors. During the Ray era at the FBI, the Bureau reallocated resources from child crimes to January 6 work. Director Patel, you've also moved agents from headquarters to field offices to better align with their law enforcement mission. Under your leadership, the FBI has apprehended several most wanted fugitives and secured the extradition of senior leaders of the Central American gangs like MS-13. Now, it's well understood that your predecessor left you an FBI infected with politics. I'm going to provide examples of that today, including making public new whistleblower records.
जान के तू अखियां नु मार दी तू जिंद जान वार दी कदी नहीं हार दी जम के इरादे ओ चांदी ओ पाल दी का तो फिर नच दी जो तुर ना कमाल सी तेरा ठुमका कमाल सी लगदी पंजाब दी कुड़ी है बंगाल दी लगदी पंजाब दी कुड़ी है बंगाल दी ठुमका कमाल सी तू सोनी है बंगाल दी अमर भालोबाशा तुम्ही शोभ आमार तुम्ही नाच दुरूता आजा तूने मेरा दिल चैन है लूटा अमर प्राण प्रियो चल जाइया अमर रसगुल्ला चल चलिए जहाँ कोई न दूर किते डरिया किनारे वे बैठ के वे बंदे तेरी मोटी मोटी अखियां सहारे तुम्हें खूब गरम लोचे अपनी नरम चल खूब नाचे बिंदिया ने निंदिया से बातचीत कर ली अम्मी तुम की चाय बस और कुछ नहीं
At your nomination hearing, I made public records that whistleblowers provided me about Arctic Frost. Arctic Frost was the FBI case opened and approved by antitrust Trump FBI agent Thibault. Arctic Frost then became Jack Smith's elector case against then Citizen Trump and now President Trump. These new records show that Arctic Frost was much broader than just an electoral matter. the case was expanded to Republican organizations. Some examples of the group that Ray FBI sought to place under political investigation included the Republican National Committee, Republican Attorney Generals Association, and various Trump political groups. In total, 92 Republican targets, including Republican groups and Republican-linked individuals, were placed under investigative scope of Arctic Frost. On that political list was one of Charlie Kirk's groups, Turning Point USA. In other words, Arctic Frost wasn't just a case to politically investigate Trump. It was the vehicle by which partisan FBI agents and Department of Justice prosecutors could achieve their partisan ends and improperly investigate the entire Republican political apparatus. So today, Senator Johnson and I are making these records public for the entire country to see, and I hope a lot of people are interested in seeing what government can do when various agencies have a political agenda. My investigative work has also exposed the political way in which Peter Navarro was investigated and prosecuted. When FBI agent Tebow found out that Biden's DOJ would prosecute Navarro, he said, "Wow, great." That's a quote, unquote.
सिर्फ एक कप?
खुद ही तो महंगाई लगे रहते हो, सोचा थोड़ी बचत कर ले।
मतलब 2 लोग एक ही कप में पिएंगे?
नहीं, आप देखेंगे।
ओह, मुझे पता था।
क्या करूं? इससे बनते ही 2 कप हैं।
समझते हैं एक दूसरे को, इसीलिए बने हैं एक दूसरे के लिए।
From Nestle.
Through whistleblowers, I've obtained a audio recording of Special Agent Giagardina and Special Agent Sebastian Gardner's delivery of a subpoena to Navarro. I'm making that audio public today. In a court document filed by the Department of Justice, Navarro's interaction with the FBI was unfairly described as, quote unquote, the word combative. That intervention with Navarro was just as the justification to later aggressively arrest him. Then we get to the Clinton Annex and the Durham Annex. The Clinton Annex showed that the Comey FBI had evidence necessary to complete the Clinton investigation, the one about her mishandling of emails and classified information, but the FBI never did its job because it never reviewed the evidence at that time. The Durbin Annex showed that the Clinton campaign had a plan to falsely tie Trump to Russia, yet the Comey FBI failed to investigate that information. Instead, the Comey FBI used the discredited Clinton campaign-funded Steele dossier to advance Crossfire Hurricane against Trump. Director Patel, thanks in a large part to you, both annexes were finally declassified. That may be history, but it's history to make sure we don't repeat the history of the past. And the people ought to be concerned when the weaponization of government is used in this way, whether it's done by Republicans or Democrats. Last last Congress, I made public an FBI document called 1023 form that alleged a bribery scheme with the Biden family. To date, the FBI has never answered Congress whether they investigated the text messages, the audio files, and the financial records referenced in that 1023. Whistleblowers have provided my office with 2 additional FBI 1023 documents. These documents memorialize statements from FBI sources. These 2 new 1023 documents are from separate FBI confidential human sources during different years. So in total, we now have 3 different FBI confidential human sources providing information about the Biden family and potential criminal conduct. Today, Senator Johnson and I are releasing these records. Let me say this for the partisan media, the people that are supposed to be policemen of our Republican form of government. We aren't saying the allegations are true. We want to know what the FBI did to fully investigate their veracity or lack thereof and what they concluded. Let's put this matter to rest one way or the other. Starting with my chairmanship, I've given one example after another of disgraceful partisan weaponization by federal law enforcement. Since the Trump administration took power, many FBI agents have been removed. The removal included agents and prosecutors who became partisan weapons that lost their way, and I've made records public to prove it. And many of my whistleblowers were aggressively retaliated against by some FBI agents who were subsequently fired. One FBI whistleblower publicly said of these terminations, quote, ensuring that they no longer work at the FBI isn't retribution, it's responsible leadership, end of quote. Which brings me to my final and favorite topic, whistleblowers. In August, 10 of my FBI whistleblowers secured compensation agreement because of your leadership, Director Patel. It included a mix of reinstatement to the FBI, reinstatement of security clearances, and monetary compensation. At the beginning of this month, another of my FBI whistleblowers got their job back. All told, across government agencies, almost 20 whistleblowers have received fixes to their retaliation. Today, you'll get a lot of grief from some members of this committee, but in the short amount of time you've been director, you've corrected whistleblower retaliation, increased transparency more than any other FBI director I've seen, whether that FBI director was appointed by Republicans or Democrats. And I've been around here more than anybody else on this committee. I yield to Senator.
ਕੀ ਲੈਂਗੀ ਨੀ ਮਿੱਤਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਿਲ ਦੇਣ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਲੈਂਗੀ ਨੀ ਮਿੱਤਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਿਲ ਦੇਣ ਦਾ ਗੱਡੀ ਕੋਲੇ ਕਾਲੀਆਂ ਨੀ ਤੂੰ ਗੋਰੀ ਵਾਲੀਆਂ ਨੀ ਡਿੱਗੀ ਚ ਦਨਾਲੀਆਂ ਨੀ ਤੂੰ ਚੱਚੀ ਬਾਲੀਆਂ ਨੀ ਛੜੀ ਮੇਰੀ ਅੱਖ ਤੇ ਨੀ ਕਾਲਾ ਤਿਲ ਨੱਕ ਤੇ ਨੀ ਨਖਰਿਆ ਲੱਖ ਦੇ ਨੀ ਮਰਿਆ ਮੈਂ ਲੱਕ ਤੇ ਨੀ ਕੀ ਲੈਂਗੀ ਨੀ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਮਿਲ ਬੈਣ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਲੈਂਗੀ ਨੀ ਮਿੱਤਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਿਲ ਦੇਣ ਦਾ ਕਰ ਲੈ ਤੂੰ ਪੈਕਿੰਗ ਆ ਵਕੇਸ਼ਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਚੱਲੀਏ ਨੀ 10 ਦਿਨ ਨਾਲ ਰਵੇ ਹੀਰੀਏ ਠੇਕਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਪੀਣੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੰਦ ਕਰ ਦੇਣੀ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ ਤੇਰੇ ਨੈਣਾ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਪੀ ਲਈਏ ਪੀ ਲੈਂਗੀ ਨੀ ਮੱਠੀ ਪੈਂਦੀ ਰਹਿਣ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਲੈਂਗੀ ਨੀ ਮਿੱਤਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਿਲ ਦੇਣ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਲੈਂਗੀ ਨੀ ਮਿੱਤਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਿਲ ਦੇਣ ਦਾ ਹੱਥ ਕਰ ਲੈ ਗ੍ਰਿਪ ਬਸ ਤੂੰ ਹੀ ਮੇਰੀ ਇੱਕ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਵੇਖ ਵਜ ਕਿੱਕ ਹੋਇਆ ਨੈਣਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਡਿਪ ਗੁੱਤ ਦਾ ਪਰਾਂਡਾ ਕਾਲਾ ਬੋਲਦੀ ਸਵੀਟ ਵਾਲਾ ਫੱਬਦਾ ਸੂਟ ਕਾਲਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਵੇਖੀ ਲਾਲਾ ਤੇਰੀ ਪਗੋਰੀਏ ਦੱਸ ਤੇਰੀ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਰਹਿਣ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਲੈਂਗੀ ਨੀ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਮਿਲ ਬੈਣ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਲੈਂਗੀ ਨੀ ਮਿੱਤਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਿਲ ਦੇਣ ਦਾ ਜੰਗਾ ਨੀ ਪਿਓ ਲੱਗੇ ਲੁੱਟ ਗਈ ਨੀ ਉਹ ਕਦੇ ਤੇਰਾ ਪਿਓ ਆਵੇ ਸਮਝ ਨਾ ਕਿਉਂ ਕੋਈ ਕਰਦਾ ਨੀ ਵਾਕਾ ਜਿੱਤੋਂ ਡਰਦਾ ਇਲਾਕਾ ਪ੍ਰਦੀਪ ਮਲਕ ਹੁਣ ਲਵੇ ਤੇਰਾ ਚਾਕਾ ਮੌਕਾ ਪਾਲਦਾ ਫਿਰੇ ਨੀ ਇੱਕ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਗੱਲ ਕਹਿਣ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਲੈਂਗੀ ਨੀ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਮਿਲ ਬੈਣ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਲੈਂਗੀ ਨੀ ਮਿੱਤਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਿਲ ਦੇਣ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਲੈਂਗੀ ਨੀ ਮਿੱਤਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਿਲ ਦੇਣ ਦਾ
Thanks, Chairman Grassley, for holding this oversight hearing during a critical period in the history of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. During my 4 years as chair, I held 4 hearings with then FBI Director Wray. As a reminder to Republicans who claim the Biden administration weaponized the FBI, President Biden retained Director Wray, a lifelong Republican who was President Trump's nominee for the office. After his second election in an unprecedented move, President Trump forced out Director Wray and nominated Kash Patel, arguably the most partisan FBI director ever. Director Patel came to the FBI with a political mission, and he spelled it out in writing in detail. He wrote government gangsters, quote, "The rot at the core of the FBI is not just scandalous, it's an existential threat to our Republican form of government," end quote. And with the power of his office and the blessings of the president, he attacked the FBI with a vengeance. Mr. Patel had falsely claimed the FBI, quote, "was planning January 6th for a year," end quote. He even went so far as to produce a song by the January 6 rioters who violently assaulted police officers in the Capitol. He compiled an enemies list of public servants he called government gangsters, like former FBI Director Mueller, whom Patel called, quote, "an utter swamp creature." Former Trump officials who served with Mr. Patel warned us he would weaponize the FBI to protect the president's allies and target his critics. And indeed, Director Patel has already inflicted untold damage on the FBI, putting our national security and public safety at risk. Since January 20th, the Trump administration has engaged in an unprecedented purge of FBI officials. As we heard from highly credible whistleblowers, Mr. Patel was involved in directing this purge even before he was confirmed, despite his sworn testimony to this committee. It began with terminations and forced retirements of all 6 nonpartisan career officials who run all 6 branches of the FBI, the executive assistant directors. Since then, at least 18 of the 53 special agents in charge of FBI field offices have been removed, along with many other senior officials. Individual agents have been targeted for termination simply due to the work that they were assigned, such as January 6th investigation. In fact, according to former acting FBI Director Brian Driscoll, in a lawsuit filed last week, Director Patel made this very plain, telling Driscoll personally, quote, that his own job depended on the removal of agents who worked on the cases against the president, end quote. And even though he knew, quote, the nature of summary findings were likely illegal. At the same time, Director Patel has installed MAGA loyalists as political appointees in key career positions, including conspiracy theorist Dan Bongino as FBI Deputy Director, the first time in the history of the FBI that this position has not been held by a career FBI agent. Director Patel has also reportedly initiated loyalty test, requiring dozens of officials to sit for polygraph exams and answer inappropriate questions about whether they've made negative comments about him personally. Of course, as is often the case in the Trump administration, the rules apply to thee, but not to me. As we understand it from highly credible sources, key members of Director Patel's senior executive team and others on the 7th floor had disqualifying alerts on their initial polygraph exams. Well, how did they survive? They survived because of a personal waiver by either the director or the attorney general to remain employed by the Bureau. Understand the context here. Political operatives in key positions, given the routine FBI polygraph exam, failed and had to receive waivers to continue their positions. They were lucky to keep their political appointments. They were, but the 5,000 career civil servants the director has so far forced out of the Bureau's ranks were not offered that same courtesy. 5,000. This mass exodus has created a disastrous brain drain, particularly in the fields of cybersecurity, counterterrorism, and counterintelligence. For example, my office has received information indicating that cuts to the Bureau's cyber division will cut personnel by half, despite the ever-increasing threats posed by adverse foreign actors. The brain drain is exacerbated by Director Patel's misuse of remaining FBI personnel and resources to focus on other priorities of this administration. According to reports, the 25 largest FBI field offices have been ordered to divert 45% of their agents from their primary missions to work on the mass deportation of immigrants. Just as concerning is Director Patel's plan to hire fewer qualified agents by removing the college degree requirement and reducing new agent training at Quantico from 18 weeks to just 8. So we have a brain drain and a significant watering down of training. Quite a record, Mr. Patel. As recently fired special agents and others have warned, fast-tracking inexperienced and improperly trained people into critical national security jeopardizes the Bureau's ability to effectively protect America.
नया शेल वी पावर अब पहले से बेहतर लाए हर सफर में भरपूर एतमाद। ये फ्यूल अब देता है ज्यादा ताकत, बेहतर पिक और आपके इंजन में भर दे नई जान। हर फिल के बाद हर सफर के साथ
Director Patel himself had no training or life experience for this position. The result of that incompetence is staggering. For example, after Attorney General Bondi publicly stated in February that the Epstein client list was, quote, sitting on my desk right now to review. That's what she said on Fox. Director Patel diverted more than 1,000 FBI personnel from their critical missions to work on 24-hour shifts reviewing over 100,000 pages of Epstein-related records. These personnel were instructed to flag any records in which President Trump was named. But that review ended in an unsigned memorandum from DOJ and FBI stating simply, "There is no incriminating client list," close quote. Director Patel still has not responded to my letter from 2 months ago asking about his role in this cover-up. On the day of the horrific shooting of Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University, Director Patel again sparked mass confusion by incorrectly claiming on social media that the shooter was in custody, which he then had to walk back with another social media post. Mr. Patel was so anxious to take credit for finding Mr. Kirk's assassin that he violated one of the basics of effective law enforcement. At critical stages of an investigation, shut up and let the professionals do their job. Notably, Director Patel recently forced out Special Agent in charge of Salt Lake City, Mayim Saeed, a counterterrorism expert with 20 years' experience, who would have led this high-profile investigation. The men and women who serve at the FBI and the American people deserve a director who has the ability and the character to restore the Bureau to its place as the preeminent law enforcement agency. I want to close on a personal note. I came of age in the 1960s. We experienced a number of horrific assassinations, including President John Kennedy, Senator Robert Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King. We are going through a similar period of division and political violence. All of us in public life, on both sides of the aisle, have a responsibility to bring down the temperature and to work to unite the American people. Let's be clear. Republicans are not Nazis, and Democrats are not evil, as Mr. Patel has claimed. Democrats are not responsible for the murder of Charlie Kirk, and Republicans were not responsible for the murder of Melissa Hardman. Our political opponents are not our enemies. We are all Americans, and we should be working together to keep the American people safe and protect their constitutional rights. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Would you please stand so I could swear you? Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Please be seated, and you can give your statement now.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Durbin, and members of the committee. It's an honor to be here with you today as the 9th Director of the FBI. I want to providing a briefing into the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk. It's important that this FBI is transparent as possible without jeopardizing investigations. Charlie Kirk was shot at 12:23 p.m. on September 10th. I think this timeline is critically important. Less than a day later, the FBI, at my direction, released the first set of images of the suspect that we captured based on our analysis on the ground. Later that evening, while conducting extensive interviews and cell phone analysis, and also flying out evidence response teams and hostage rescue teams and evidence tacticians who were collecting evidence in live time and flying them back to Washington, D.C. in our laboratories for immediate analyses, we were able to extract video from the campus feed. And at my direction at 8 p.m., in partnership and in promise to working with the public to bring this fugitive to justice, we released a newly, never before seen video of the suspect. We also released new enhanced photos of the suspect. A few hours later, that suspect was in custody, pursuant to the interrogation of the suspect's own father, who stated, "When I saw that video that you released, I recognized it was my son, and I confronted him, and he was handed over to lawful law enforcement authorities." That is the FBI working with the public, as I promised, being transparent and providing critical information along the way in the manhunt for the suspect or suspects involved in Charlie's assassination. We received over 11,000 tips in the first 24 hours alone. We received 16,000 submissions to our digital media enterprise and tip lines. That is a large number of material to go through. I want to thank President Trump and the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, for their unwavering support and commitment resources to this, in all investigations. I also want to especially thank our colleagues in Utah, the governor's office, DPS, and the sheriffs out there. State and local law enforcement partnership has been a cornerstone since I took over at the FBI, and it was no different here. And our teams in Salt Lake City, our SACs out there across the country, our lab technicians in Quantico who raced to complete the evidence analysis so the public could have the answers they need. These people worked through the night without sleep for days on end. They are to be commended. They are not to be attacked. And many, many, many more people I don't have time to thank here today. But I do want to thank the American people especially. The mission of the FBI is for them and with them and by, with, and through them. And is that mission and that ethos that I brought to this investigation and so many others, and that's why that suspect is in custody. We cannot do our job without the American public and credible reporting in the media, and that's why Tyler Robinson is in custody today, about to face charges.
ये बंद जो है इंशाल्लाह आज मैं आप सबके सामने ऐलान कर रहा हूँ कि इंशाल्लाह अगले 100 दिनों के अंदर अंदर ये बंद मुकम्मल होगा इंशाल्लाह, और तमाम सोसाइटी के इर्द गिर्द इसको बनाया जाएगा। कोई ऐसी जगह, कोई ऐसा ब्लॉक नहीं रहेगा जिसके इर्द गिर्द ये बंद ना बने, क्योंकि बंद के ऊपर पेस निकल रही है। तो हमने फैसला किया है कि हम इसको अपने मेंबरान की सहूलत के लिए यहाँ पे जॉगिंग ट्रैक बनाएंगे, ताकि जो भी इसको इस्तेमाल करना चाहे, वॉक के लिए, जॉगिंग के लिए, सैर के लिए, वो इसको इस्तेमाल कर सके। उनको बताना चाहता हूँ पार्क उससे ज्यादा खूबसूरत है, और इंशाल्लाह ताला हम उससे ज्यादा कारोबार करेंगे जो हम इससे पहले कर रहे थे, और हम पार्क को उससे ज्यादा खूबसूरत अब बनाएंगे जो इससे पहले कर रहे थे। ये पार्क भी मामूली चीज नहीं है, ये पार्क भी मेरे जिस्म का हिस्सा है, और ये पार्क भी मुझे उतनी अजीज है जितने मुझे अपने बच्चे अजीज हैं। इस पार्क के अंदर अलीम खान के माँ बाप दफन है, ये अलीम खान इस पार्क को कैसे छोड़ सकता? ये 5 ब्लॉक्स के अंदर मैं 2 महीने के डेवलपमेंट चार्जेस को माफ करने का ऐलान कर रहा हूँ। आज मैं आप सबके लिए कहना चाहता हूँ, ये तमाम मेंबर्स के लिए एक एक घर की कंपनसेशन होगी, एक एक फैमिली की कंपनसेशन होगी। आज मैं 1 अरब रुपए के पैकेज का ऐलान कर रहा हूँ, और अगर किसी को ये महसूस हुआ उसके बाद कि कोई कमी रह गई है, उसकी किसी एक चीज की भी कमी रह गई है, वो फिर हमें बताए, हम फिर लेके आएंगे, उसके लिए और पैकेज भी देंगे। कंपनसेशन देने आपको कहीं नहीं जाना पड़ेगा, आपके घर में आके आपको कंपनसेशन मिलेगी इंशाल्लाह। जिसका ज्यादा नुकसान हुआ होगा उसकी ज्यादा कंपनसेशन। यहाँ पे कोई शख्स भी ऐसा एक भी मेंबर नहीं रहेगा जिसकी कंपनसेशन ना हो। नेक्स्ट वीक से इंशाल्लाह, मंडे से ऑनवर्ड इंशाल्लाह आपके घरों में लोग आएंगे, ब्लॉक वाइज हम चलेंगे, हर ब्लॉक में हम कंपनसेशन करेंगे।
बहुत से लोगों को लगता है स्ट्रॉ यूज करने से उनके दांतों की सेंसिटिविटी में बेहतरी आती है, लेकिन ऐसा नहीं है। स्ट्रॉ के इस्तेमाल से सेंसिटिविटी ट्रीट नहीं होती। सेंसिटिविटी को ट्रीट करने के लिए यू हैव टू यूज द राइट प्रोडक्ट। न्यू सेंसोडाइन रैपिड एक्शन सेंसिटिविटी से सिर्फ 60 सेकंड्स में आराम देता है। मैं सेंसोडाइन रैपिड एक्शन रेकमेंड करती हूँ बिकॉज इट वर्क्स।
The last time I appeared before this committee was in January for my confirmation hearing. I told you then that if I were confirmed, I would provide and do everything I can to provide a safe and secure America. I promise to provide the courageous men and women of the FBI the tools and resources they need to crush violent crime and defend the homeland. I pledge myself to commit to full transparency, oversight, and accountability so we could restore the public's trust in the FBI. And that's exactly what I've done. Under this administration, the FBI has arrested more than 23,000 violent criminals. That's more than twice for the same time period from last year alone. 23,000, more than twice from the same time period last year. We've taken over 6,000 illegal firearms off the streets. That number is an exponential increase. We've identified and located more than 4,700 child victims. More than 4,700 child victims have been found by this FBI. That is a 35% increase from the same time period last year. 1,500 child predators have been arrested. That's a 5% increase from the same time last year. 300 human traffickers have been arrested. That's a 10% increase from the same time last year. Over 350 members of Tren de Aragua, foreign terrorist organization, have been arrested, and we have 42 ongoing cases. That is a 250% increase from the same time last year. Those are just some of the things the FBI is doing differently and better because we are leading the mission to crush violent crime and defend the homeland. We have also captured four top 10 fugitives from the FBI's top 10 most wanted list. To put that in perspective, that's the same amount I've captured in 7 months than my predecessor did during the entirety of the Biden administration. Those are real results, and the credit is to the men and women at the FBI. We've been able to achieve these results because the FBI recognizes violent crime doesn't just happen in Washington, D.C. That's why one of my first decisions as a director was to get the people, the Bureau's professional staff, out to the field. And we've done that with great speed. And every single one of your districts and states has received a plus-up of FBI personnel, agents, and special operators to the tune of almost 1,000. We did that because crime had unexpectedly and unacceptably exploded across the country. In fact, one of the stats that the American people should thank the FBI the most for is we are on track to have the lowest murder rate in modern American history. The lowest murder rate by double-digit percentages. A major factor in the drop of this violent crime is the FBI's flagship Operation Summer Heat. We use this initiative at the direction of the President and the Attorney General, surging resources to our major and mid-major cities across America, conducting intelligence-based operations to target the worst of the worst, to target the gangs, to target the transnational organizations, to target the TCOs, and to target the drug trafficking cartels. And we have taken them out city by city. There's a lot of work left to be done, but we're off to a great start. Just ask the citizens of Seattle, Miami, Memphis, Charlotte, Chicago, and so many more places. Specifically in New Orleans and Nashville alone, there has been an increase in the number of violent crime arrests by an average of 250% for each of those cities. And there has been a drastic reduction in crime across the board in mid-major cities across this country, thanks to the men and women of the FBI. How are we doing that? We are attacking the drug epidemic. We've seized nearly 1,000 kilograms of meth and cocaine off the streets of America. We've taken over 1,600 kilograms of fentanyl off the streets. Maybe one of the greatest achievements we have this year, 1,600 kilograms of fentanyl. That's a 25% increase from the same time last year. To put things in perspective, that's enough fentanyl to kill a third of the American populace, 115 million Americans. We're also going after the companies that manufacture these precursors overseas in places like mainland China and their cutting agents. In fact, this month in Cincinnati, we announced groundbreaking charges aimed at the individuals and businesses responsible for flooding these opioids and their precursors and cutting agents into the streets of America. And for the first time that I can remember, we are charging these businesses and enterprises, not just in America, but in mainland China, and seizing their operational necessity to have money by seizing their cryptocurrency wallets. We're also equally important to protecting the homeland. We know we have a no-fail mission. We're committed to keeping our nation safe from terrorism, cyber attacks, and foreign adversaries. Whether stopping threats inspired by foreign terrorist organizations or lone wolf actors or sponsored by hostile nation states. This year, we've already made nearly 60 counterintelligence arrests. 60 counterintelligence arrests this year alone is a 30% increase from the same time period last year for the CI work at the FBI. I'm proud when we can share our successes, such as when an espionage charge was brought against an active duty U.S. Navy sailor caught spying for the People's Republic of China. But I want the American people to know the FBI is protecting the homeland from foreign adversaries in a way that will never make the news, and a lot of the good work that they do will never be able to discuss in this setting. We're working on cyber threats. We're attacking malware infrastructure, going after ransomware attackers, delivering a new partnership with the private public sector engagements we've taken with the companies who are attacked by these foreign adversaries and nation-state actors and individual enterprise rings from around the world. We are combating Salt Typhoon, Vault Typhoon, Flax Typhoon, and so many other ransomware and cyber threats this nation faces. We're also arresting people such as Tajik national in Brooklyn, who is suspected of sending tens of thousands of dollars to support ISIS. We're going after the new form of what I refer to as modern day terrorism in America, 764 crimes that involve harming our children by going after them online, causing self-mutilation, suicide, sexual abuse, and steering them in the wrong direction. Currently, we have 3,500 international terrorism investigations. Specifically, we have in this country 1,700 domestic terrorism investigations, a large chunk of which are nihilistic violent extremism, NVE. Those who engage in violent acts motivated by a deep hatred of society, whatever that justification they seem is. The FBI has seen a 300% increase in cases opened this year alone versus the same time last year. In the last couple of months, the FBI secured a guilty plea for a man in Tennessee who attacked an energy facility with drones and explosives. We secured the indictment of a violent Sinaloa cartel faction leader in Chicago on narco-terrorism charges. Our folks in Sacramento collaborated with domestic and international partners to secure a guilty plea for a leader of a transnational terrorist organization who solicited the murder of federal officials. But the Bureau's job is not done. I'm committed to this transparency. Mr. Chairman, you alluded to our work with Congress. To date, in the 7 months that I've been FBI director, we have produced 33,000 pages to the United States Congress, 33,000 pages. Just to put that in perspective, my predecessor in his 7-year term issued 13,000 pages to Congress, and his predecessor in his 4-year term issued 3,000 pages to Congress. I've issued 33,000 pages in 7 months, and we're gonna keep going. I'm dedicated to restoring the trust that the public has and needs in the integrity at the FBI, and it's being done every day by the men and women of the FBI. Now, I know that there's a lot of talk about Epstein, and I'm here to testify that the original sin in the Epstein case was the way it was initially brought by Mr. Acosta back in 2006. The original case involved a very limited search warrant or set of search warrants and didn't take as much investigatory material it should have seized. If I were the FBI director then, it wouldn't have happened. The search warrants were limited to small time periods to include 2002 to 2005 and 1997 to 2001. Mr. Acosta allowed Epstein to enter in 2008 to a plea and non-prosecution agreement, which then the courts issued mandates and protective orders legally prohibiting anyone from ever seeing that material ever again without the permission of the court. The non-prosecution agreements also barred future prosecutions for those involved at that time of those individuals. Still, this administration at the direction of President Trump has done more to turn over all the credible information we are legally able to do so, and we will continue to work with Congress to achieve that end. Under the direction of the president, thank you for your support for our mission to working to jointly deliver transparency and congressional oversight to the United States. Lastly, I want to close with the president's initiative here in Washington, D.C. as an example of what we're doing around the country. And I think our next city is Memphis. 21,000 arrests in D.C. with our federal partners, a huge decrease in violent crime, 60% decrease in gun crimes in Washington, D.C. in the last month, 74% decrease in carjackings in Washington, D.C. in the last month, 53% decrease in homicides in Washington, D.C. in the last month. The drugs are disappearing, people are freely walking around the states, and we're restoring the nation's capital to its glory. That work is through the interagency process that the FBI is proud to be a part of and the initiative spearheaded by President Trump and the Attorney General. And perhaps most notably for investigations, in Washington itself, it was the intelligence that the FBI gathered through our source network here in D.C. that helped us identify the suspects in the horrific murder of the D.C. intern Eric Tarpinian. We're proud to be a part of that investigation. We're proud to put the resources to bear of the FBI. And in closing, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee and Ranking Member Durbin, I'm honored to be the 9th director of the FBI. I'm not going anywhere. If you want to criticize my 16 years of service, please bring it on. Over to you.
There's crisis every other day. One of the most recent one being the port strikes in the US. What Musk allowed us is visibility through data. So in the moment, even though our shipments were in the sea,
I've observed when whether it's Republican or Democrats, want a yes or no answer, that the witness and the senators talking over each other. So I thought what I'd do this time, rather than have that happen, if there's something you don't get a chance to answer because of the demeanor of a Republican or Democrat senator, before we, when we get done with that questioner, I'd give you a chance to fill in if there's something you didn't get a chance to say. Since 2019, I've sought greater transparency about Jeffrey Epstein and the government handling of the matter. I've continued to investigate during this Congress. Director Patel, was Jeffrey Epstein an intelligence asset for the United States government or the foreign government? And if so, which agencies or governments?
Mr. Chairman, I can only speak to the FBI as the director of the FBI, and Mr. Epstein was not a source for the FBI.
Okay. Would you commit to providing my office with all classified, non-classified records relating to the Epstein matter?
I will commit to providing all records I'm legally permitted to do so under the court orders.
It seems to me that I accept your answer to my question, but the broader intelligence community ought to answer these questions as well. Victims deserve an answer. Regarding the initial FBI 1023 document that I made public last Congress, that document mentioned 1, text messages, 2, audio recordings, and 3, financial records that allegedly proved a bribery scheme with the Biden family and foreign interests. Regarding those records, did the Ray FBI make any effort to determine whether they existed? Did the Ray FBI make any effort to obtain those records?
Not to my knowledge, Mr. Chairman.
Since this matter hasn't been fully investigated, the FBI has an obligation to the public to do exactly that and figure out why it wasn't investigated. Next question. I've done a lot of oversight relating to sexual misconduct by the FBI agents. In fact, I believe this is something I discussed with Ray, one of his appearances before this committee. According to the FBI Inspection Division, it opened nearly 300 investigations based on sexual misconduct referrals between 2017 and 2024. According to whistleblowers, the Biden-Ray FBI totally dropped the ball on this question. One credible accusation of sexual misconduct is too many, of course. Are you committed to reviewing the Bureau's policies to ensure responsible responses to credible allegations of misconduct, that they're swift and adequately protect victims?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Relating to a similar subject, during child crimes and sexual misconduct related investigations, are any private sector companies less than cooperative with you? What improvements in information sharing need to be made to catch those criminals?
Mr. Chairman, we can always do better with our private sector companies. I've reached out to the leaders of most of them, asking them to provide more material so that we can be responsive and take legal action and protect the youth of this country. I'm happy to discuss, possible legislation that we can do to allow for these companies to continue.
Yeah. Say maybe 1 inch up on the microphone.
Sorry.
I think you're close enough, but I think it's just a little bit lower. When you raise your head, it's difficult to hear. Director Patel, since 2021, I've raised concerns about the Biden administration failure to properly vet Afghan evacuees. Director Gabbard informed my office that as of August 2022, approximately 1,600 evacuees located in the United States had ties to terrorism and other derogatory information. That's why I and many others have opposed bills giving blanket approval. Are you aware of what steps your predecessor took to investigate these evacuees? And what steps have you taken to investigate them? And what, if any, national security concerns still exist?
Mr. Chairman, I can't speak to the steps my predecessor took, but I will make sure we do a sweeping review and get back to you on that. As far as the Afghan refugees and evacuees, as during my tenure, we are going through the databases to make sure that no known or suspected terrorists enter this country to harm our nation. And also, as my resolve as FBI director, one of the first acts we undertook was a manhunt of one of the Abbey Gate bombers and leaders in that crime spree that killed 13 brave Americans. And within 2 weeks, we caught one of the leaders of the Abbey Gate bomber and brought him to justice here in 2 weeks from Pakistan. And so my commitment to you on Afghanistan in all matters is complete and without border.
Through my and other investigations, we found that the Biden administration lost thousands of undocumented children. We never heard a peep from senators wanting to help find them, even after I invited them to do so. In September 2025, the Trump Health and Human Services announced the creation of an interagency crime coordinator cell to find these and other missing children. That interagency group reportedly includes your agency. What resources and personnel have the FBI assigned to this new interagency effort, and what steps have the FBI taken to assist in locating missing children that the incompetent Biden administration lost?
Protecting our youth is maybe the top priority for the FBI. As it specifically relates to your question, Mr. Chairman, as I stated, we've surged resources not just to this cell, but across the nation to our FBI's field office to locate children who have been trafficked, who have been victims of sexual abuse. And we have located 4,700 children in the 7 months since I've been FBI director. And that is a 35% increase from the same time period last year. And we're not stopping, and we're committed to doing that work on our tribal lands as well. And we are finding victims of child trafficking and child abuse every county and every district, and we're not going to stop.
Okay. As I mentioned during my opening, I'm releasing documents with Senator Johnson about Arctic frost. Specifically, the documents show its scope expanded to include 92 Republican organizations. From evidence that I've seen, it looks to me like another political hit job against Republicans. What steps has the FBI taken to make sure improperly predicated investigations and weaponizations like this don't happen again?
The simple answer, Mr. Chairman, is the FBI will only bring cases that are based in fact and law and have a legal basis to do so. And anyone that does otherwise will not be employed at the FBI. We are doing a prospective and retrospective analyses of individuals who may have weaponized the department and the agency. And as I've committed to you during my confirmation hearing and my conversations with you, this FBI will not be weaponized anymore in either side of the aisle.
In June of this year, I raised concerns about the FBI's use of restricted access and prohibited access systems. According to the FBI, quote, when search teams that exist in a prohibited access status cases are searched in Sentinel, the particular search will receive a false negative Sentinel search response, end of quote. Clearly, this is not only affects FBI agents, it impacts congressional requests and court cases, and the Biden administration used it to thwart oversight. How are you ensuring that restricted access and prohibited access files are produced to Congress during court cases? And have you identified any Biden family records in restricted and prohibited status?
As I've committed to you with my transparency initiative, whether it's restrictive or prohibited, every single thing we can legally provide to Congress, we will. We've also restructured how these restrictive and prohibited cases are labeled and provided access to more people in the chain of command so that more people have knowledge of what these restricted and prohibited cases are, including myself and the deputy.
Do you commit to providing any records that are available?
I do, sir.
You publicly said that your team, quote, found a room that Comey and others hid from the world in the Hoover building full of documents and computer hard drives no one had ever seen or heard of. That's a quote from you. I've received a whistleblower disclosure that the room contained some information kept outside the FBI record keeping. I also have been informed via a whistleblower disclosure that the room included materials related to Special Counsel Mueller, former Director James Comey, and other documents maintained outside of the FBI. Has the FBI now reviewed and analyzed those records? Has the FBI properly recorded the documents? And these records are clearly responsive to my as well as my colleagues' congressional requests. What steps have you taken to ensure all responsive records are produced to Congress? That has to be my last question.
What's supposed to happen is leadership at the FBI is supposed to, pursuant to the Records Act, correctly store these records at our Information Management Division, IMD. In this room, we found a plethora of hard drives, computers, hard documents, soft documents that were not so recorded, a voluminous amount of information. So we are continuously processing that information. So A, we subscribe to the Records Act and commit that those records will be kept permanently at the FBI. 2, we are reviewing those materials. A lot of those materials are related to ongoing investigations. And 3, we are on a rolling basis providing Congress the documents that we can, and we will continue to do so.
Okay, thank you very much, Senator Durbin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, in addition to the extensive purge of nonpartisan career FBI official reports indicate that dozens of remaining officials have been subjected to polygraph exams to test their loyalty. My understanding is that approximately 40 officials have been asked to sit for a polygraph during your administration, and several have been asked whether they have ever made negative comments about you. Director Patel, FBI agents pledge their loyalty to the Constitution of the United States, not you personally. What is the basis for requiring polygraph exams of your workforce and asking them if they've made negative comments about you?
Dive into the deep. Feel the heat. Dive into the deep. Yeah! Why so cool? Why so cool? Why so cool? Why so cool? Why so
हर दिन नेस्ले मिल्क पैक क्रीम के साथ एक्स्ट्रा स्पेशल डिश पाकिस्तान्स #1 ब्रांडेड डेयरी क्रीम.
I don't know what reports you're referring to, Ranking Member, and I reject any reporting that has false information in it, so I'm not going to respond to that. As far as polygraphs go, generally they are always and always have been utilized at the FBI to track down those that leak sensitive information and have unauthorized disclosures to the media, and we will continue to use them to ensure the integrity of the FBI.
Did any individual on your senior executive team, the director's advisory team, or who serve in the positions on the 7th floor receive disqualifying alerts on their polygraphs?
Senator, I'm not going to get into the personnel discussions that were had on a polygraph. Those are private discussions, and many of them relate to ongoing investigations.
Did you or Attorney General Bondi provide any individual with a waiver so they could remain employed after they received disqualifying alerts on their polygraphs?
I'll have to get back to you.
You don't remember that?
No, sir. My priority is protecting the American public, not getting into the weeds of polygraphs.
And to have a decent memory when you come before a committee.
I'm happy to talk about all the good work the men and women of the FBI are doing, including provided the lowest crime rate in American history. If you want to talk about how to protect the citizens of Chicago, has seen a 30% reduction in its murder rate because of the men and women of the FBI.
You take credit for that?
I'll happily do that.
You
The
take
interagency partners and the men and women of the Chicago PD have never been more
include
powerful.
local law enforcement, please.
Have you ever seen my testimony across this country where I always lead with our interagency partnerships with state and local law enforcement? It is the pillar of what I am doing. And on the 7th floor, for the first time in FBI history, I have installed police officers and sheriffs right on my 7th floor to report to us every day what's going around the country on the street level, because that is a priority of the FBI and is the only way we are going to work. I don't take credit for anything, but I will defend the men and women of the FBI and the cops that help us get it done.
You should. Director Patel, to your knowledge, did a whistleblower ever make a disclosure to Attorney General Bondi indicating that the New York field office was withholding Epstein-related records?
I'm not familiar with that whistleblower.
You know that there was such a whistleblower?
I'm not familiar with that whistleblower.
In response to the blowback she received, Attorney General Bondi also pushed the FBI to review approximately 100,000 Epstein-related records on an arbitrarily short deadline in March, and the FBI was directed to flag any documents that mentioned President Trump. Nothing came of that review until July, when DOJ and FBI released an unsigned memorandum stating there is no incriminating client list. Why was this July 7th memorandum unsigned?
Would you prefer I've used AutoPen?
Why was it unsigned?
The memorandum had the insignia of the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And in our effort to secure transparency for the American people, because the 3 prior administrations had not done so, we conducted an exhaustive search of everything related to the Epstein cases, and we produced what was legally and permissibly able to be produced to Congress and the American public.
So
and there's a congressional subpoena, and we're continuing to do so.
Did you personally direct that investigation so that you would sign such a...
Did I personally direct what investigation?
Of the Epstein records for any reference to President Trump?
Again, you are citing reporting that I think is baseless. We conducted an investigation of the Epstein case files pursuant to the direction of the President of the administration to provide all credible information, and we are working with Congress pursuant to a congressional subpoena to turn over all the documents we can. All individuals.
Who at DOJ and FBI was responsible for its drafting and conclusions?
Many individuals at the Department of Justice and the FBI are responsible.
There was no lead person?
The Attorney General leads the Department of Justice, and I lead the FBI.
So the Attorney General is responsible for that?
The Attorney General leads the Department of Justice.
Director Patel, much like you, Deputy Director Dan Bongino was a conspiracy theorist who built a lucrative career making inflammatory and unsubstantiated statements about the FBI that would be disqualifying in any administration that cared about nonpartisan law enforcement. For instance, Mr. Bongino called the placement of pipe bombs outside the DNC and RNC headquarters on January 6, quote, an inside job, and went on to say this was a setup. I have zero doubt, and whoever goes into the FBI, you better get an answer about why. Director Patel, you and Deputy Director Bongino are now leading the FBI. What is the evidence to suggest the pipe bombs placed outside of the DNC and RNC on January 6 were an inside job?
I appreciate the opportunity to discuss Director Bongino's mind record. So many on this committee and the media jettison our 31 years of public service.
Can you answer the question, sir?
I'm answering the question. You're questioning the integrity of the Deputy Director of the FBI and mine.
If you found any
and I'm going to
evidence.
answer the question.
I'm
The pipe
asking-
bomb investigation is ongoing, and I'm not going to discuss the
Ongoing?
details of the pipe bomb investigation. Mr. Bongino was a Secret Service agent for 15 years, a police officer for 5. I served this country in multiple administrations for 16 years. We were also private citizens, and we are now back in government service. And what we have the ability to do is set aside our personal beliefs to deliver the mission of justice for this country, and we're doing it day in and day out. And I find it disgusting that everyone and anyone would jettison our 31 years of combined experience that is now at the helm of the FBI, delivering historic results at historic speeds for the American people.
So you have no evidence?
I got a lot of evidence, and I'll give it to you when I can.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. There's a New York Times story this morning about Chris Meyer. As I understand it, he was your personal pilot, at least for some period of time. Mr. Meyer has quite a record himself. Flew over 350 hours as an Air Force pilot on 3 aircraft types in Afghanistan. Mr. Jardina, another former FBI agent, a 1999 graduate of U.S. Naval Academy, commanded 100 Marines in combat during the 2003 invasion of Iraq, participated in several firefights, followed up with 2011 deployment as reservist to Afghanistan, where he interrogated senior Taliban officials. It appears that you terminated these two agents. Why?
I'm not going to get into personnel decisions that we made.
चूज करें सिर्फ नेस्ले प्योर लाइफ, क्योंकि हेल्थी फ्यूचर से कीमती कुछ।
So you're not accountable for your decisions to take people who served our country so admirably and terminate them without any cause?
That's a one-sided story. Anyone that has been terminated from the FBI, generally speaking, failed to meet the needs of the FBI and uphold their constitutional duties. And you providing a one-sided story from your perch is absolutely disgraceful, because the men and women of the FBI deserve better. And your attack on the current leadership of the men and women of the FBI is equally disgraceful, because now you're attacking the leaders that are our brave SACs in the field who are doing the job that this country needs.
It's disgraceful.
And we will continue to do it.
Excuse me, it's disgraceful when Mr. Meyer and Mr. Jardina, who served our country so well, are terminated apparently because of the rants of a podcaster.
That is your opinion. It is not a fact.
Well, it's certainly my opinion I can back up with fact. Let me ask you to explain the situation in Baltimore, if you will. Did you read the story about the termination of the project in Baltimore?
Which story?
764 Group.
Sorry. Which story?
764 Group. The Baltimore agents were investigating. Are you familiar with that?
No, sir.
Well, I'm not going to go into detail. It would take too long to do it. But apparently that this group, 764, a nihilistic, violent extremist group, seeks to blackmail children to perform vile acts on a camera, under investigation by Baltimore, which was terminated by you. I'd like you to respond in writing, if you will, as to the circumstances of that termination.
Sure. Our operations against NVEs, as you're referring to, has been historically high, and we've taken down multiple NVE rings, including 764 rings, who are harming children and causing them to be mutilated and
Last question. Suicide. Can you explain why you are eliminating the requirements for a college degree for your agents?
I appreciate the opportunity to address that. You said in your opening statement, we are reducing the training requirements at Quantico. We are not. We are expanding them. You're referring to an 1811 crossover program, because I believe the men and women of places like the DEA, the ATF, and the Marshal Service and the Secret Service who want to work at the FBI should deserve that opportunity in a shortened bridge program, which we provided. We are also keeping the 18-week BFTC as is traditionally being held at the FBI. So we're not reducing any requirements. We are increasing those that we bring into the FBI.
Did you change any of the requirements on college degrees?
We are allowing police officers who have served for a number of years to come into the FBI who did not obtain the requisite college degree to apply to be federal agents, because we feel they have the street level experience we need to conduct this mission.
I yield, Mr. Chairman.
I have to respond to this business about you not treating employees properly, because I served under the previous administration when Democrats willingly turned a blind eye to Biden administration retaliation against my whistleblowers. They didn't get due process when their careers and lives were upended. I'm talking about people like Dina Perkins, Jeffrey Veltri, Timothy Dunnan were removed from their positions. Several whistleblowers were reported that they targeted FBI employees for their political beliefs by suspending and revoking security clearances. One FBI whistleblower said that Perkins, Veltri, Dunnan, and other FBI leaderships were, quote, responsible for what happened to me and my family, ensuring that they no longer work at the FBI isn't retribution, it's responsible leadership. Another whistleblower that is a registered Democrat said they spoke out against abuses in security clearances processes committed by FBI senior leaders, particularly Veltri and Perkins. Then Perkins and Dunn suspended their security clearances and put them in unpaid leave. I'm going to put some more examples like this in the record so I don't take up a lot of time for my colleagues. Senator Graham.
Thanks, Senator Graham. Welcome to the committee. The numbers sort of speak for themselves. You've done a lot in a small period of time. So all those folks out there making this happen, thank them for me.
Sir.
As to how to be an FBI agent, you've made a decision that local law enforcement folks, people who've served in law enforcement without a college degree are able to apply now. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Makes sense to me. So experience out in the field might be as valuable as a college degree, believe it or not. Venezuela. We're blowing boats out of the water in the Caribbean because they're connected to international narco-terrorist groups. Is that correct?
Yes, that mission is being led by the Department of Defense, sir.
Okay. What legal authority do we have to do that?
खुले दूध पर कोई म्यारी चेक्स नहीं लगते। खुला दूध जरासीम और मिलावट से भरा हो सकता है।
Sir, I would defer the questions on legal authority to the Attorney General and the department.
Fair enough. Do you believe that Maduro runs a narco-terrorism state in Venezuela based on?
I believe based on the intelligence and prosecutions and investigations we are currently running, a large portion of the cocaine that exits out of South America, its origination point is in Venezuela, and using transshipment points through Haiti, they're using the navigable waterways in the Caribbean to the end state delivery, which is the United States of America, and we will hunt down every single one of those narco traffickers with the authorities.
There's some actual indictments of Maduro as an individual for being involved in that. Is that correct?
Senator, I think you're referring to the DEA indictment on that one.
Right. So I guess the point is, would it be fair to say that Venezuela is a good candidate to be labeled as a state sponsor of terrorism under U.S. law?
Senator, from my perch, we will provide the intelligence necessary for anyone who meets the threshold to be a state sponsor of terrorism, and this administration has
I
expanded.
think they are, so we'll be going down that road. China, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being nothing, 10 being great, how is China helping with the fentanyl problem here in the United States?
Under this administration, we have taken, as I highlighted the Cincinnati case, the precursors are the problem. The fentanyl is the end state that kills American citizens.
Well, the precursors are made in China, right?
They're made in China. And so for the first time in a decade, I had a call with my counterpart in the MPS, the Ministry of Public Services, to attack the precursor chemical companies and have those chemicals labeled.
Too early to rate the success?
We have indicted multiple businesses in China. We've also cut off the transshipment points of those precursors. They switched. Once we got on their track about their delivery routes to the Mexican drug cartels directly, they started going to India. We called the Indian authorities and they shut down those transshipment points. So we're continuing to work with our partners overseas.
So China is helping, would you say?
They are starting to help, and we are hoping under this administration's leadership we can get more of their help.
Let me know, in the coming months if that continues, because if they are helping, that's a good thing.
Yes, sir.
We need to celebrate the breakthrough. If they're not, that would be a bad thing. So after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, there seems to be one refrain from everybody, and that's about the effect of social media. Do you believe that social media is one of the instruments radicalizing America and inciting violence?
Well, it's not. My belief is based on the data, and the data shows that social media is wildly out of control when it comes to radicalizing.
You're dead right. So what did you just say? This guy's the FBI director. He says that social media is wildly out of control. Now, free speech, we all agree with that, but you can't yell fire in the theater, right?
Yes, sir.
Free speech doesn't allow you to go online and groom a child for sexual.
No, it does not.
Okay. Free speech doesn't allow you to go on the internet and basically incite somebody to kill another person, right?
Absolutely not.
So if it's illegal offline, it should be illegal online. Agreed? Whatever the law is.
Yes, sir.
Just because you're online doesn't give you a get out of jail free card.
No, sir.
So if a parent is worried about a child being bullied on a website, what rights do they have under U.S. law?
We have to balance the rights, as you said, Senator, of free speech versus those that encroach
Is there
upon
any
violence.
law that can shut down one of these sites for bullying children or allowing sexual predators on the site?
We are able to attack certain sites on the dark web. When it comes to the open internet infrastructure system, we have to reach a threshold to attack a company's position that only subscribes to violence.
Can the parents sue that company?
They can.
They can?
They can sue not the social media companies.
That's what I'm talking about.
They can sue the companies.
No, I'm talking about the social media company that gives lives to this behavior.
No, you're referring to Section 230, sir.
Yeah. Would you advocate a sunsetting of Section 230 to bring more liability to the companies who send this stuff out?
I've advocated for that for years.
All right. We need to do this, folks. These companies are taking content that it makes you sick, that could get you killed, get you poisoned, and there's nothing we can do about it under our law. A person can do about it because of Section 230. So if your child is being sexually groomed online or bullied online, and you go to the social media company and ask them to take it down, they refuse, you have like zero rights. How many images of sexually exploited children are purveyed every year on social media sites?
नीडो स्कूल एज न्यूट्रिशन में मौजूद इजाफी न्यूट्रिएंट्स इसकी ग्रोथ, लर्निंग और इम्यूनिटी को सपोर्ट करें। इसीलिए तुम्हारे हर बढ़ते कदम पर नीडो और मेरा प्यार हर पल साथ।
The number is astronomical, and Senator, if I can just add one step to that analysis.
Please.
It's not just what's on social media that is quote unquote real. It's the introduction of artificial intelligence and
Right.
generative AI that is creating even more child sexually abused material and even more sexually violent acts online and mimicking people.
Would you say that the way social media is structured today, really no accountability, 36 million images in 2023 of sexually exploited children, that this is a public health hazard?
It is.
Would you say that it's a mental health problem, particularly for younger people?
It absolutely is.
Do you agree that some of these sites are designed to be addictive?
I think not only are some of these sites designed to be addictive, unfortunately, the reality is some of these sites are designed to generate income, and many people are generating income based on this illegal trade.
Do you think it's now time for America to deal with this problem?
I'm all in. I have been all in, and I'm happy to work with Congress to do so.
Well, I tell you what, having the FBI director all in is great news for me, and I hope the committee will respond and that we'll be all in, trying to fix a problem that I think is doing a lot of damage to our country. When it comes to John Bolton, was there new evidence involved in the raid on his home?
Sir, that investigation is very much ongoing. As you know, there was a raid of his house pursuant to a legal
Was there a
search
warrant obtained to go in?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. All right.
We're looking to have that search warrant unsealed at the
Yeah,
appropriate
I
time.
think that would be good, quite frankly. In December 2023, Director Wray said he sees blinking lights everywhere regarding to foreign terrorist threats against our homeland. How would you characterize the state of threats to our homeland by foreign terrorist groups?
Foreign terrorist organizations have adapted and started utilizing online platforms, and so has the FBI. And so while they are adapting and expanding how they harm our country, we have as well. They have not stopped. There's been a resurgence in places like West Africa and elsewhere of foreign terrorist organizations, and also the newly emboldened drug trafficking organizations in Mexico. It's going to take a whole of government approach to get.
Does Hezbollah fall within that group?
Yes, sir.
So Hezbollah is involved in not only terrorism, but narco-terrorism?
Yes, sir.
So do you consider Hezbollah a threat to the United States?
Absolutely.
All right, finally, do you have enough people to do all this? Do you need more people? You're involved in a lot of things, and the numbers speak for themselves. You have FBI agents helping here in Washington, D.C. You have FBI agents helping in illegal immigration. That's good. you've got a chance here to tell us if you need more people. Seems to me that threat level of this country is pretty high right now. You got thousands of domestic terrorism cases. How many are being investigated?
I think 3,500 off the top of my head.
3,500, okay. Anyway, it seems your plate's pretty full. I would urge you to get with your people. And if you think you need more people, now's the time to do it. It would be a shame to miss an opportunity to plus up the FBI if the threats justified it. Will you look?
I will look, sir.
Okay, but are you comfortable you have enough people right now?
Right now, I'm comfortable with the reallocation of agents and personnel outside of Washington, D.C. and plussing up states like South Carolina in double-digit numbers, and I'll get back with my team on this one.
Thank you for your service.
Senator Whitehouse.
Boy, is my timing good.
It is very good.
Director Patel, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
When you were here for your confirmation, we talked about your so-called enemies list. It appears to me that there have been adverse actions of various kinds taken against about 20 of the 60 people on your enemies list. You've been in office for 7 months. At that rate, you've got 14 months until you've hit all 60. Can you explain that?
Again, that is an entirely inaccurate presupposition. I do not have an enemies list. You can continue to characterize it as you wish. The only actions we take, generally speaking, for personnel at the FBI are ones based on merit and qualification and your ability to uphold your constitutional duty. You fall short, you don't work there anymore.
Well, there was a list. You don't like it to be called an enemies list, and it had...
There's crisis every other day. One of the most recent one being the post strikes in the US. What Maersk allowed us is visibility through data. So in the moment, even though our shipments were in the sea, we were able to pivot the routes in a way that there could be minimal disruption to our consumers.
Peak Frames Original Sandwich. Originals are for
about 60 names, and about 20 have had an adverse action. So those are, I think, pretty clear facts. Let me move on to your grand jury testimony, which we also talked about when you were here. I think you indicated that you understood that a witness in the grand jury is free to discuss afterwards whatever they told the grand jury. And you then went on to suggest, saying, I can't go into court orders granted by the DC District Chief Judge, and you want me to violate a court order. In those remarks, you fairly plainly suggested that there was a court order of some kind that somehow restricted or limited your ability to discuss your own testimony to that grand jury. Since then, that chief judge that you mentioned, Judge Boasberg, has written, and I'm quoting him here, Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 6E allows witnesses like Patel to divulge the contents of their testimony, meaning that nothing was preventing him from doing so before the committee. Can we confirm here today that there is no court order of any kind that limits your ability as a witness before the grand jury to discuss your own testimony to that grand jury?
We can confirm that pursuant to my action, that grand jury testimony has been released, the transcript.
Let's, in what forum was it released, may I ask?
Publicly.
Okay, we'll check on that. The FBI does background investigations. In the case of a U.S. attorney Janine Pirro, it has come to light that in a civil proceeding, that Fox News executives, prior to her confirmation, called her, I'm quoting here, a reckless maniac who makes, quote, insane comments, and said, I don't trust her to be responsible, and noted her penchant for what they called random conspiracy theories on weird internet sites. My question to you is, did that turn up in her background investigation?
For any background investigation, Senator, we do not discuss those publicly. And for every background investigation, when there's adjudication, it is not made by me. It is made by the career professionals who run the inspection division and background check system.
Do you know if that information was found? You see, we're an oversight body here, and there are really three possibilities here. One is that the FBI background investigation didn't find that stuff. That's worth noting because these investigations, full field background investigations, are supposed to find that stuff. That's possibility one. Possibility two is that the FBI did in fact find that information and then did not report it to the administration or to the committee. And the third is that you found it, you reported it to the administration, and they went ahead with her nomination knowing that she had been described as a reckless maniac who made insane comments, who wasn't trusted by colleagues to be responsible, and who had a penchant for random conspiracy theories on weird internet sites. Are you saying that this committee does not have any authority or reason to look into which of those things is true?
This committee can look into anything it wishes. I'm telling you that the background investigations that are done by the HRD division are done by career individuals. They do not report the details of those to me. They adjudicate those independently and individually. That's how it's always been done.
What happened during the pause of FBI background investigations that was alleged in the complaint against you and the FBI by the FBI agents who were terminated? On February 12th, Emil Bovee directed the FBI, quote, to pause any FBI background investigations of Trump nominees until Patel was confirmed, which happened on February 20th, is the general description of what they alleged. Why, do you know, were background investigations paused? Was it so material like this could be scrubbed out of them? And have they been resumed without that pause fully and normally after your arrival on February 20th?
I can speak to the time period since I got there. Background investigations have been ongoing across the board at the FBI.
Why was the pause, do you know?
I was not there.
Wasn't explained to you when you got there? Oh, by the way, boss, they've had an 8-day pause on background investigations. You think that would be something that would be explained to you at some point?
Again, I leave it to the men and women at the HRD division to run background investigations. I do not interfere with them.
I get that. But what I don't get is whether you were told about that pause, and why would you not be told about that pause?
I don't recall that, sir.
All right. The allegation also relates that part of the employee review of senior staff was whether or not they voted for Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. Since when is who you voted for a proper question for agents to be asked?
I don't know what allegation you're referring to, Senator. If it's from an ongoing matter in litigation, I can't discuss that. But what I can discuss is I can only speak to the FBI's background investigations. There are other background investigations conducted across the government. I can only speak to mine.
So just to clarify, I'm not talking about the FBI full field background investigations. I'm talking about internal employee reviews for promotion, for termination, for job actions of various kinds. And my question to you is it now the policy of the FBI to ask agents who they voted for, and since when is who agents voted for a proper question for the FBI to ask?
Taking those in reverse order, it's not a proper question, and it's improper to allege that I'm doing that. And also at the FBI specifically, under my leadership, we do not ask who you voted for. And just one correction for the record, if I may, Senator, it's Security Division that runs background investigations, not HRD.
Okay, I'll accept that correction. And in the event that we cannot locate your grand jury transcript, just expect a question for the record that will give you the chance to either provide that transcript again if it had been previously provided, or to make the statement that Grand Jury Rule 6E allows you, to the best of your recollection, truthfully, about what it is that you told that grand jury. Do you understand that?
That's why I wanted the transcript released, and we'll get it to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
I think I want to take an opportunity when we hear about your political weaponization to remind my Democratic colleagues that what's happened the last decade, federal law enforcement, intelligence community, even when Trump was president, has thrown everything at him. They've even gone after his associates and Republican Party organizations. One investigation after another, one prosecution after another. I use examples you've heard me already say today, Crossfire Hurricane and Arctic Frost. These were all built on defective foundations of political bias. And then we released the Clinton Index and the Durham Index and the FBI's failures to investigate. So I've been acquainted with this because I've been trying to get to the bottom of it, and we had to get a new FBI director to get all this information, Senator Cornyn.
Director Patel, welcome. Thank you for your willingness to serve in this very challenging position. How many people work for the FBI today?
Approximately 36,500, give or take.
I've always wondered whether an organization that big and that diffused all across the nation was actually capable of being managed. Have you experienced any surprises in terms of the, as the director, in terms of your management of the organization?
In my experience, Senator, the leaders in the field are supposed to lead. So we have empowered and we've changed the structural operation of the FBI to empower SACs in the 56 field office, 55, 56 come 1 October, to lead the mission. We've also empowered the respective assistant directors and operational directors to lead the mission. That is how you manage 36,500, 37,000 people. No one or two people can do it. And that's been the transition, is the power structure is being pushed out to the field operations.
It sounds like a very practical way to approach it. And how is morale?
Morale, when I travel around the country, in my experience, has never been higher. The FBI and the police officers that we work hand in glove with across this country are excited to do the work. And the stats that I'm citing are no achievement of mine. The stats that I'm citing in the 7 months that I've been there, such as a 42% increase in cyber arrests alone this year, is because the men and women at the FBI have been empowered in the field. They want to do the work. They're getting the opportunity to do the work. And with our great partners in the respective states like Texas, and where we just returned a top 10 most wanted fugitive in Cindy Singh, are getting the ability to make those prosecutions a reality.
By the way, Senator Durbin was asking about polygraphs. Aren't polygraphs a standard part of the standard test given to people with security clearances across the intelligence community?
They are.
As a condition to maintaining your security clearance?
I believe they are.
Speaking of intelligence, one of the things that I've wondered about over time is, the FBI is a premier law enforcement agency in the nation, but you also have other important responsibilities in counterintelligence. And there's been different debates or people wondering whether, including me, whether that's an appropriate role for the FBI to play. And I guess the most challenging part of that is if it's not at the FBI, where would it go? But can you, given your background, I know as working on the HPSI and your intelligence background, can you talk a little bit about what you think about the counterintelligence role of the FBI agents and how that's working, whether you think it's performing the way it should, or whether there are other changes or reforms need to be made in order to improve its functioning? As you know, the threats from our adversary nations are just proliferating every day. So what do you think?
The espionage activities of our adversaries have never been so high, and I think the counterintelligence mission is properly housed within the FBI because we've invested with those authorities for Congress, and I believe that mission set is working. And if I can, sir, since January 20th of this year, the FBI has made 55 arrests on the counterintelligence mission alone. That's a 30% increase in CI arrests from the same time year-to-date last year. We've arrested 33% increase in PRC counterintelligence arrests, an 83% increase in Russia counterintelligence arrests from the same time last year, then a 60% increase on Iran counterintelligence arrests from the same time period last year. So we are already on total exceeding the entirety of the number of arrests from the previous year on counterintelligence matters across the board. And in my opinion, the FBI is the only agency that can do it. Now, we work with the interagency to do it, and we need them, but we have the mission set.
Thank you.
Dive into the deep. Feel the heat. Dive into the deep. Yeah! Why so cool? Why so cool? Why so cool?
नीडो स्कूल एज न्यूट्रिशन में मौजूद इजाफी न्यूट्रिएंट्स इसकी ग्रोथ, लर्निंग और इम्यूनिटी को सपोर्ट करें।
You know, sometimes I wonder whether we sort of repeat the way we do things because we've always done it that way. And I'm getting up to building up to this issue of the narco trafficking and what President Trump has ordered the Defense Department to do in terms of to take out some of these transnational criminal organizations that are importing poison into the United States and responsible for killing tens of thousands of Americans, maybe hundreds of thousands of Americans over time. Do you think a law enforcement model for dealing with these narco traffickers is adequate to deal with the threat? Or do you think we need to start thinking about this in maybe new and different ways? Obviously, we're not engaged in a war per se, although it is a war metaphorically. And the law enforcement model seems to be not working from the standpoint of dealing with the volume of the threat and the magnitude of the threat. Do you think we need to start thinking about how do we deal within constitutional legal parameters to deal with this problem in a different way to be more effective in protecting the American people?
Absolutely. And the way to analogize this and why I've advocated for the designation, and I'm thankful that the Trump administration has designated these cartels and narco traffickers as foreign terrorist organizations, is because we must treat them like the foreign terrorist organizations post 9/11. We must treat them like the Al-Qaedas of the world because that's how we're operating. And just treating them with law enforcement capabilities alone was wholly insufficient to wipe out the targets in their entirety. They always had the next man up philosophy. If you take out the leader, they got 10 guys behind him. But in order to eliminate, and that's the key, eliminate the drug trade and eliminate the pouring into this country of narcotics, we have to use our authorities at the Department of War and the intelligence community to go after the threat like we did terrorists when we were manhunting them. And now we have that ability, and we're seeing that in live time, whether it's on the strike on the boat or going down into Mexico and working with our Mexican authorities with these intelligence assets to say we've located not just the person in charge, the cadre in charge, but the entire network. And we are now able to dismantle that entire network. It's going to take time. The manhunt after 9/11 took some years, and this is going to be a years-long mission.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the counterterrorism mission because we've had a lot of experience, the U.S. government writ large, with dealing with terrorism in the Middle East and elsewhere. And obviously some of our friends and allies, like Mexico, for example, are very sensitive about sovereignty and being able to control what happens on their territory. But yet we're beginning to see more and more cooperation, as you point out, in that regard. And so in your opinion, has the counterterrorism model, have the lessons learned by the U.S. government writ large, are they being aggressively applied? Are there other things we need to do to make sure that those skills, those lessons learned are applied more broadly to the threat of narco trafficking?
I can only speak to the FBI. We are applying all of them to our the CT mission set to the CN mission set, and we're using the new authorities given to our intelligence community partners in the Department of War to combine these collective efforts and in a new way, meeting together and creating an interagency process that gets after the threat dynamic. And whether that's in a kill operation, a capture operation, a surrender operation, or a host nation takedown, like we did with the counterterrorism mission sets in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and Pakistan, and elsewhere, we are applying that to the drug traffickers in Mexico and Venezuela and Colombia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have seen too much political violence in this country. We all know that. Just last week, Director, your friend Charlie Kirk was gunned down on a college campus. I'm sorry for your loss. In Minnesota, only 2 months ago, a madman took the life of my friends, Melissa and Mark Hortman, shot Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette a combined 17 times. And evidence indicates that he would have killed a lot more if law enforcement hadn't intervened. Just last month in my state, we were again shook to the core when little kids were shot down through stained glass windows in Annunciation Catholic Church in Minneapolis. And while the victims weren't politicians in this case, they were 6-year-olds and 8-year-olds, the manifesto that the shooter left behind was political. But in the words of your own federal law enforcement, this person was an all-purpose hater. Went after Blacks, Hispanics, the president, Muslims, Jews, nearly everyone. And this happened during the first.
More than ordinary experiences चाहिए तो आप नेगरो पे ना चिपके रहो. Rocks पे आओ और पाओ best deals and discounts on food, apparel, paddle, and get access to exclusive Rocks events. Because it's more than a network. Download the Rocks app now.
Mass of the year for these kids. They were excited to see their friends, meet their new teachers, and 2 children, 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel, 10-year-old Harper Moisky were murdered, 21 other people injured, some of the kids, 18 kids, severely. Fletcher was just starting 3rd grade. He loved his family, his friends, he loved fishing and cooking, in his dad's words, any sport he was allowed to play. Harper, the other child, we celebrated her life this Sunday, thousands of people. Her parents described her as bright, joyful, and a deeply loved 10-year-old whose laughter, kindness, and spirit touched everyone that she knew. We've heard the words of young children who were saved because 12-year-olds laid on top of them, or a kid with disabilities who was paralyzed, whose teacher pulled him out of the wheelchair, threw him under the pew, and laid on top of him. We do thank the local FBI director and the local U.S. Attorney's Office for their work in both of these cases, the Hortman case and this. But I did want to focus on one local law enforcement moment that I'm not sure has made with all the news going on in Minnesota. When the first 911 call, and you've heard about other places where this waited and waited, the first 911 call was made at 8:27 a.m. The first officer was on the scene just 4 minutes later, local Minneapolis police, at 8:31 a.m. The Chief O'Hara, shared with me the actual numbers. Listen to this. Over 20 people were in ambulances just 14 minutes, all of them, after the police got on the scene. 14 minutes after the first call. Tourniquets, stretchers, and they got them all to Hennepin County Medical Center or Minneapolis Children's Hospital. And I think it is worth looking at what happened there, because one of the dads whose daughter was severely injured, still in the hospital, that I met on Sunday, told me that there is absolutely no way his beautiful daughter would have survived if police hadn't been there. So it is worth looking at for all of us. So my focus on behalf of these parents, because I promised I would do this on Sunday, was just to figure out how we can do anything to stop this from happening again. So expanded background checks, ghost gun bans, every shooting is different. Raising the minimum age to purchase an assault weapon, even if we're not gonna ban them, I favor banning them, but that's one idea that's out there when so many of these shootings are people who are 18, 19, 20, 21. The one at Annunciation Church was 23. Both shooters in Uvalde and Buffalo had just turned 18 when they purchased the assault weapon bans. I'm not saying any one of these things would prevent every single shooting, but I really ask everyone to look at these. We also need to tackle social media, and I really did appreciate Senator Graham's questions. I think we have to protect free speech and not engage in censorship. But for years, I have supported repealing Section 230, which was made when these companies were little companies starting up in garages. And I think it is one way to get at making this better environment online and preventing violence. So my first question is on the assault weapon ban. Do you think that would be helpful in reducing gun deaths, Director?
Senator, if I may, I want to answer the question, but thank you for your remarks. Especially it relates to my friend Charlie, and I share and relay my remarks, my sentiments to you. Minnesota has suffered untold tragedy in these last few months, and whatever creativity we can use to eliminate even just one shooting, one horrific death, I am in favor of engaging with Congress fully to do. I don't have the answers. I don't know what will eliminate it in its entirety, but I'm willing to engage and explore new ways with you, Senator.
Okay, thank you. And so, assault weapon ban, what do you think?
Senator, I think there are instances on this legislation that could prevent future attacks, but I'm not going to weigh into the creation of legislation.
Could you also look at, and I favor just assault weapon ban, not getting these guns in the hands of people that shouldn't have them, but could you look at the numbers on the ages?
Yes.
Because from 18, even going from 18 to 21, which wouldn't have prevented the shooter in Annunciation Church from purchasing that gun. He purchased several the same day. Over 100 rounds were fired from the assault weapon through the stained glass windows. So if you went up to 25, it would have stopped that immediate purchase and probably saved the lives of these kids. But if you go to 21, that is the same age that already applies to purchasing handguns from federally licensed dealers. So I prefer another approach, but I was hoping that our Republican colleagues would at least look at that, given Uvalde, Buffalo, and some of these other mass shootings, trying to be practical, but thinking that it could make a major difference. Strengthening background checks, could you also look at that? And then banning ghost guns and bump stocks. What do you think of that?
So, Senator, you're talking to my heart here on one of the core missions at the FBI, which is our CJIS facility in Winchester, Virginia, which is our hub for our NICS checks, our NCICs, our capabilities on.
There's crisis every other day. One of the most recent one being the post strikes in the US. What Maersk allowed us is visibility through data. So in the moment, even though our shipments were in the sea, we were able to pivot the routes in a way that there could be minimal disruption to our consumers.
हर दिन खाने में क्या बनेगा? गुडनेस से पूछ लो.
When we have, I think it's 19,000 state and local community law enforcement come to us for these background checks, we're trying to make that processing as fast as we can so we can get them real-time information. I think we have a 93% clearance rate in 15 minutes as it relates to ghost guns, but we can do better.
All right, well, just if you could get back to me on all those and talk to the White House. Threats against elected officials have increased exponentially. Members of Congress received more than 9,000 threats last year, up from 1,600 in 2016. There's been a lot of talk about the rhetoric and the like. And if we want to move forward on things like Section 230, or even look if we can do anything on guns, I do think we're going to have to be honest about this all-purpose hater issue, and it has bothered me, this thing, we're going to go after this group, we're going to have to go after this group. I just want to, for the record, show that the murderer of Speaker Hortman and her husband, it was Democratic lawmakers on his list. He went to the ones whose addresses he had, by the way. Planned Parenthood was on the list, as were businesses and law firms. Doctors. I already mentioned the ones with the Catholic Church shooting. So it is not just as the radicals on the left, what's a quote from the president, are the problems or destructive movement of left-wing extremism that Vice President Vance said. According to the Anti-Defamation League last year, all the murders were committed. And I'm not actually going to say this because I don't even want to go left-right with this, but you can imagine it wasn't from the left. Cato Institute, conservative think tank, published a study just last week that found terrorists from the right were responsible for 6 times more deaths than people from the left. I actually don't want to go tit for tat on this, but what I am asking for is that this rhetoric of blaming one side or the other stop, if you could convey that to the president, and that we actually work on things that are solutions. So could you commit to me, Mr. Patel, Director Patel, that you will do that?
Absolutely, Senator.
Okay, thank you. Last, you were asked about social media, and I will put some more questions on the record about that. I think we could make major movement on that. The local FBI helped when the city of St. Paul was a victim of a cyber attack, and I'm concerned about some of the cyber attack cuts. I'll ask you that on the record. AI, I'm glad you raised that. I think we have to do more, but also including election interference because they're using AI videos. I just had one happen in this very committee on me, and I just think they're going to start using it in democracy, election. They could be foreign. Do you think some of this is foreign entities, Mr. Patel?
Generally speaking, we have traced a lot of this to loose groups overseas that don't have any sort of central cluster.
There's going to be a lot on you then. And then last, I'll put on the record just my concern about protecting journalists, the new guidance that came out of the department. Have you deployed any FBI resources to investigate members of the media for activities related to news gathering, reporting, or reporting on government whistleblowers, something near and dear to the chairman's heart?
The only time we would involve an investigation of a journalist if they've conducted or committed an allegation of separate criminal activity, most prominently leaks of classified information.
Thank you.
Senator Hawley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, good to see you. Thank you for being here. You're leading the FBI at a very critical time for that agency and also a critical time for our country. And I want to start by talking to you about the tide of violence that we have seen, ideological violence against people of faith, particularly Christians. You just think here, take a rough catalog. Just in the last couple of years, we've seen shooting at the Covenant School, Christian school in Nashville. We've seen school shooting at the Annunciation School. We've seen church shootings multiply. We've seen acts of crime and violence, vandalism, arson against churches and parishes all across the country. And then, of course, last week, Charlie Kirk, who said, "I want to be remembered for my courage, for my faith," was shot on a college campus. Let me just start with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Is the FBI, and I appreciate the tremendous work the FBI has done in this investigation, is the FBI investigating the Kirk assassination as part of this broader pattern of anti-religious, anti-Christian violence?
We are investigating Charlie's assassination fully and completely, and running out every lead related to any allegation of broader violence, and we're producing results on that we'll disclose when appropriate.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Let me just ask you a few questions about that, if I could. Sure. Reports have suggested that the FBI is investigating a broader network of groups that may have had some knowledge of the shooter's plans. Can you give us any details on that, following up what you've already said in public? How's the FBI working to find other potential accomplices, folks who may have known about the shooter's plans, folks who may have encouraged him? Any update on any of that?
So in terms of what we do for an interrogation perspective, we go and reach out to the family and community immediately. And we've conducted those investigations and interrogations with local law enforcement, and we're continuing to do that because those closest to the suspect are going to hopefully know the most about the suspect and his beliefs and his ideology. On top of that, unfortunately, it has been leaked that there was a Discord chat, and for those unfamiliar with it, it's a gaming chat room online that the suspect participated in. So what we're doing, we've already done, is serve legal process, not just on Discord, so that the information we gathered is sustained and held in a evidentiary posture that we could use in prosecution should it be decided to do so. And we're also going to be investigating anyone and everyone involved in that Discord chat.
Okay, very good. I see the public reports that the Discord thread had as many as 20 additional users. It sounds like you're trying to run down all of that to see if that's accurate, who else may have been on that thread, what they may have known. Is that fair to say?
It's a lot more than that, and we're running them all down.
It's a lot more than 20?
Yes, sir.